I'm Jahi Harvey, Administrator, Certified Project Manager, and Leadership Consultant.
And I'm Jamie Kowalski, Department Manager with a Master's degree in the Science of Administration.
If you work in the public sector like us, then you know there's never enough time, funding, or manpower. But what always goes a long way is personal brand building and ideas, if you're willing to look and not afraid to listen when you find them.
Some of the most innovative and interesting theories in the science of leadership is happening in the public sector right now.
So I say let's hear from them and discuss their ideas,
so that everyone working within the industry can benefit from the knowledge and experience of the people we interview.
Because you can win, even in government.
From the studios at Power Placement Academy, this is the Coaching Up, Out, and In podcast.
All right, this is Jahi.
And Jamie.
And we're back with episode 2. We got
That would be the one after the first.
That would be the one after the first, and we have some special guests coming up very shortly in the weeks ahead. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but stay tuned. You don't want to miss them.
Quick question.
Yes?
Is there a category for special guests and then non-special guests? Or are they all special, just like my mom said I was?
Good question. I don't know where to go with that.
Today, my friend,
Yes.
It looks like we have some free time to let the audience get to know us a little better. And
I like it.
Part of what we want to do here is educate our audience as best as we can on the experiences we've had to answer some of the biggest questions in leadership, especially as it relates to government, human service, delivery, that kind of thing. And so today...
Okay. I'm nervous. Where are we headed?
We're headed to a good place.
Okay.
Today I thought, if you're game, my friend,
Okay.
I'd hit you with a couple of questions.
Okay.
You give a couple of answers.
All right.
Then we shake hands and part as friends.
Okay.
How'd that be?
It'll be good if you tell me what topic we're talking about.
I'll let you know when I feel like it. Okay. The questions I'm going to be asking you have to do with...
All right, let's see.
Sort of what makes a great boss, and maybe some questions surrounding how to enhance employee morale.
I like where you're going, man. So let me ask you a question before we get started.
Okay.
What makes you a good person to ask this question, and what makes me a good person to answer it?
Well, I'll start with you. You certainly got the country through World War I, World War II.
Which is amazing considering I was born in 78.
The American Revolution. Can you, in 9 words or less...
It's a shame that you gotta couch it like that.
That's a fair point.
Because it would take about 20 minutes for me to answer.
You have no idea what the question is, so...
It doesn't matter. That's my problem. This is my Achilles heel.
Okay.
The ability to talk and talk.
Well, that and the fact that, like Achilles, you look great in a man dress.
Okay. Well, all right. I'll take your word for it. Okay. All right.
Okay. So can you tell us what might qualify you to answer questions like what makes a great boss or how we can enhance employee morale? What is it about you that makes you such an expert?
Well, I think I learned a lot from good bosses that I had in the past and from bosses that could have been better. Some of the things that I was able to walk away with, 77% of the people that were under me ended up being promoted. We were through the roof as far as efficiency and productivity. Morale was through the roof. And you can gauge that in government by how often your people show up to work.
What was your rate of attendance?
Well, when I first started that role, I think we were averaging 1 or 2 call-offs a week. For me, by the time I left that position for the last 8 months, there were 3 unscheduled call-offs for the entire department.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm asking that question first is, obviously, you can't get the work done if you don't have the butts in the seats.
Absolutely. And in order to keep the butts in the seat, they have to be invested and mobilized. People wanted to come to work. They felt like we were a team. And I think if you can explain that and you can get buy-in for that idea, you could do a lot. That I understand how to do, and I do that well.
Okay, so that's a great segue to the next question.
All right.
What was it that you did specifically, or you had your team do specifically, to boost their attendance and, I'm guessing, morale and motivation?
It's easy to say, do it because I pay you. You should be lucky to have a job. That doesn't motivate people or inspire people to do work. And if you're just relying on them to do the work because you're paying them, you're guaranteed to only get substandard work or mediocre work. So what I did was sat my unit down, my department down, and said, this is what I need and this is why I need it. This is why what you do is important. And when people understand why the job that they show up to work to do is important and why they matter, that helps bring them along as far as buy-in is concerned. And then when you ask for feedback, actually listen to it.
So did you put infrastructure behind that? How did that work?
Sometimes it was organized and other times it just came out in meetings. But if I ask you for your answer or for your advice, I am intently listening. And I think sometimes in leadership, we tend to ask just so we can say we asked, knowing that all along we want to use our own idea.
Were you writing them down in front of the staff, their visual cues that you were giving them?
Sometimes I did write it down, and sometimes it was just off the cuff or on the fly statements. But if I ask you something, then I got to make sure I follow up. If I tell you that's a good idea and then it's crickets and you don't hear from me on that topic ever, then people say, oh, that guy's a flake. I can't trust him.
So how do you
And you've already lost with that person. Now you have to regain ground that you lost because you didn't do what you said you were going to do.
How did you follow up?
Say somebody had a really good idea and they say, I think we should do this. Or I say, oh, I'm going to talk to my boss and see if we can do that. Then I come back to them and say, maybe at the next meeting, or if it was informal, I'll stop by their desk or have them come over to my office and say, hey, so I checked with them and they said we can do this or we can't for this reason, but I want you to know that was a really good idea. Keep them coming. And once people realize that you're serious about that, then you're going to start seeing a strong flow of ideas from places that you may not expect. And the people in the room that keep their mouths shut because they're trained to not say anything will start giving you their ideas too, and you'll find that some of those are the best ideas you've ever heard.
What would you say the number one blue ribbon Olympic class characteristic a boss should have?
Yeah, and I think it's integrity. When we talk about power placement and the Power Placement Academy, one of the things that we really push is integrity. And ultimately, that should be part of your brand. I mean, these private companies, Coke, Pepsi, or Under Armour, Nike, they spend billions of dollars, focus groups, trying to figure out how to show us a vision or an image and us look at them and think a certain thing and then get us to act on that image. And we have that same capability as normal everyday people with no focus groups, without billions of dollars behind us, and it affects how people perceive us and act around us every day, and we don't realize it. The top 3 things people think about you, that's your brand. The top 3 things people think about your department, that's the brand. And the top 3 things that people think about your agency or your place of work, that's the brand. If there was a Yelp review for people, how many stars would you get? And I think ultimately that comes back to integrity. That's where the game starts. If people don't trust you, you're not going to get anywhere.
So what I'm hearing you say is, and correct me if I'm wrong, though you're saying integrity is the number one thing, that is not in and of itself a silver bullet. That sounds to me like you're saying that
Absolutely
is a project
not.
of time.
It's a time, it's an experience. When I first started in a department, I didn't know anybody, so nobody had a reason to trust me. My resume was pretty light at that point. The first thing I did was find out the people in the department that people did trust, and I had to win them over. And so when I would get into a room and I would say, okay, we're going to make this change, and it would be an uproar because people don't know you yet. You can either go one of 2 directions. You can say, I'm going to shut you down because I am the boss and I sign your paychecks. Well, good luck with that, because you'll still be signing paychecks. And when the work's not getting done, then we'll see how long you last in that position. Or you can take the other tact and first start getting people buying into what you're selling. And so find the people in the department that everyone else believes in and get those people to believe in you. It's an easier sell because it's a smaller audience. And once you get their input, when you go into these rooms, and like I said, it would be a little bit of an uproar, but then when they would speak up and say, yeah, I back Jahi's plan, then everything else falls in line. And if that plan is successful, then everybody now has a shared experience with winning, and each win gets a little easier.
Get people to buy into a common vision.
Absolutely.
The why.
Yes.
They are doing
Yes,
something.
if you don't know what you're doing and why you're doing it, why are we doing it? It's hard to get people to row as hard as they can and give a maximum effort if they don't understand which direction they're headed in and why you want them to go there in the first place.
Not only do they need to know why they're headed in the right direction, the direction that they're heading in has to be a win.
Yeah, it has to be a win. You have to know what role you play. So if I'm sitting at this desk and you treat me like I'm a cog in a wheel, well, I'm going to behave like a cog in a wheel. I'm going to work as hard as necessary to meet the metrics that you've given me. But if you're asking for 110%, well, you're asking way too much because you haven't given me any reason to exert effort above and beyond the contract that you and I have together.
So less a hierarchical relationship, I'm the boss, you're the employee, and
Right.
more of a relationship with a common and mutual goal.
Right. You pick your championship coach and you pick your star player. Everybody knows their role, but we're on the same team. We get there together. We hoist the trophy together. The second I have to remind you that I'm your boss, and that's a constant thing that comes out of my mouth, I'm your director. I'm your boss. If I have to say that, I'm not doing something right. I have to take a self-evaluation, reassess how I'm interacting with my staff, because that should be an understood thing. If we're having meetings about what we should do next, what direction this department is heading or this agency is heading, I shouldn't have to start from square one every time I speak.
So what we're talking about then is a relationship between, let's say, all the members of the team,
Right.
where everyone assumes a role rather than a level of authority.
Right.
And everyone handles the business assigned to that role. They're all moving together.
Everybody's moving. Everybody understands what role they play. No position is better or less important than any other position. We just play different roles. But I am depending on you as an employee just as much as you are depending on me as a leader. And if we both understand that delicate relationship, we can move mountains. But the second I start saying my role is more important than yours, and the second I have to start reminding you of what my role is and how your role is so much smaller than mine, you have to be prepared for the mediocrity that's bound to follow.
So is there...
Keep them coming, man. This is easier than I thought.
We've had conversations about consistency.
We have.
The role consistency and, like you just brought up, integrity plays.
Right. Like us getting these podcasts out every week.
Sure. Tell me, with that in tow, what's the role of transparency in that?
Well, I think the bottom line of it is you need to be as transparent as possible. If it doesn't need to be kept a secret, why are you withholding information from your staff? If they know what you know, if it's a good thing, they can celebrate with you. If it's something that may cause issues to productivity, efficiency, or morale even, then if your staff knows, they can help you kind of figure out a way through it, especially if you ask. Again, inviting them to be a part of the solution. So even if they see it coming, they're less likely to panic once that other shoe drops, number one. And also, if they truly believe that we're in this together and that they can play a role in the solution, the morale is likely to still stay high, even in the midst of a storm. And in my experience, I found that some of the best ideas that come out of those storms come from the staff that offer them to you. But if you hold that information close to the chest because you don't want to upset your staff, number one, they're going to end up being upset anyway because they will eventually find out. Number two, you can hold information in an area about as good as a screen door. So they're going to find out that you know already. So then your integrity comes into play. And number three, they can't coach up to you. So you miss out on those good ideas that they failed to give you and you failed to ask for.
Give me 3 positive things that transparency delivers in as concise a manner as possible.
As concise as possible, I will try. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses. This might be mine, but I'm working on it. And obviously failing because I'm still talking and I haven't gotten to my point. What was your question again, sir?
In relation to
Okay, so let me ask you. I'm curious what you think about transparency and what that means overall.
So
I'm turning the tables.
So the first thing would be, it's so much easier to coach if I'm sharing with them what's going on in terms of my role as leader. If
Okay.
I'm open with them, they can later assume my position if I'm executed or I'm otherwise forced to leave the position.
Okay.
And I pulled in too close to Hoth.
Okay.
And the next guy got promoted the way Vader promotes people.
By doing that collar thing with his fingers and
I'm
chokes you
skipping.
from across the room.
So if you were to ask me that question and I were to answer it seriously without all the Star Wars references, it would be, okay, so the first thing would be being able to train freely the next generation of managers and supervisors. If
transparency, though?
Well, exactly. Because if you are transparent with what's going on in the unit and you're, as you've already mentioned, giving in terms of soliciting their opinions, and keeping them in the know, then they're going to have a lot more experience when they're promoted initially and fostering the lessons they've learned from you to the team that they end up leading.
Jamie probably will be embarrassed if I start talking about some of the cool things that I've seen him do in the past. So I've seen people in your department that I'm almost embarrassed to say. I would look at and say, man, those guys, they don't have a shot. And then 6, 7, 8 months later, they're getting promoted to some crazy job, and it's all because you gave them bits of your work that allowed them to have experience that they otherwise wouldn't have. So when they go into an interview, instead of, if you give me a chance, I promise I can do it, your staff has the ability to say, oh yeah, I do this. I'm well versed in this software. And it's because you gave them a challenge. When people come to you and say, hey, I want to go to the next level, can you help me? Your transparency in what your role is allowed them to kind of practice before they went to the big leagues. They already had experience, which I don't think a lot of supervisors do. A lot of people in leadership are afraid to do that because they're afraid of people under them being promoted. And that's not a fear that I've ever seen you display. And that example is well represented in the people that have been promoted under you.
And not to sound like, the Jamie and Jahi Mutual Appreciation Society.
We don't need to
president.
go. We don't need to do this. We don't need to go there.
Too bad. We
don't need to do this, sir.
Part of
that wasn't my ploy to get you to get
I know,
me.
But it's germane. There are people that I've seen work for you and with you. You created an opportunity for people to assume different roles, each according to their gifts, strengths, and interests.
Oh, for sure.
And
when people are doing what they like doing and you have the flexibility to make that a reality, it's not hard to keep people engaged.
So getting back to what I was saying before I was so rudely
hoping you would stop, bro.
Too bad. People assumed roles, each according to their gifts, strengths, and interests. And it was plotted and planned not just to give them something to do that made them feel nifty, but to assume roles with purpose where they're rowing all towards a common direction, and that direction is victory.
Right.
However your department defines it. So though we approached it different ways, I really admire the results we got from doing very similar things.
Absolutely.
For very similar reasons.
Yeah, and I think if you can get to a point where, stop looking at it and saying, my number one goal is to get the work done in this department. That shouldn't even need to be said. The number one role that you should assume is, how can I build better staff? If you used to be a great worker and you ended up getting this position, how can I Xerox copy that mindset into all of my staff? That should be your number one goal.
It is a far bigger priority for the successful leader to invest in the people they're working with over the work they're doing.
Absolutely. If you invest in your staff is going to invest in whatever is your number one goal. If my number one goal as a department is to move Pile A to Pile B, right? But instead of coming to my staff and saying, my goal is to move things to Pile B, and you better move things to Pile B, or so help me, you won't have a job because everybody in this city wants your job. Good luck with that. But if instead of coming at them that way, I come to them and say, what are the things that you most care about? Where are you trying to go, and how can I help you get there? People realize, wait, this guy cares about me. And wait, what is his role again? Oh, he wants to move those piles to Pile B. Well, I'm going to make sure that we move as much of Pile A to Pile B as humanly possible within 8 hours, because this guy cares. This woman cares about my career. I'm going to make sure this guy and this department looks good at all times. There was one time where I got a bunch of work an hour before it was time to close. And normally, under most circumstances, you're stuck there for the night finishing that work because it has to get done. And I had staff that said, we will not leave you like this. You don't get to that sort of relationship overnight, and you're never going to get there if only power that you have over those people is the power to sign a paycheck.
There's a dynamic going on there where they are working for not you, but for the team.
Correct.
And you, in your role, are touting those successes in places where they are directly advantaged by that.
Right.
Therefore, when opportunities arise, you've laid the groundwork for them to climb the ladder.
Absolutely. And there's been people that didn't understand that until it was way too late. Like, I had a guy, anytime I would try to give him extra work, I would say, hey, man, so there's these reports that I usually have to do, but I want you to try to do them because I want to show you how to do them. And he would say, okay, boss. And that boss on the end, in air quotes, was to let me know in a passive-aggressive way, I know you're trying to get me to do your work, supervisor, boss. In actuality, my goal was to coach them into a better position. And so there were other people on the team that were like, hey, that report you were talking about, I would love to do that.
But in order for him to assume some of your work, I know you.
Right.
You jumped in to assume some of theirs to give them.
Oh, yeah, because we're a team. There are times when you need another hand on deck. I'm not going to sit on the pile of work and crack a whip. I'm going to say, I'm going to jump down there in the ditch with you because when we win together. When we lose together. If you have assistant coaches on your team, your goal is to hopefully teach them the fundamentals so they can go on to be head coaches themselves somewhere. So back to that one staff member, once I was promoted out of that role, he was like, oh, man, really, it would have really paid off if I knew that information that he was trying to teach me. And he actually came back and told me, and he said, I get what you were doing. You're right. I thought it was a way for you to pass off your work to me, when in actuality you were trying to train me. And what ended up happening is other people got promoted.
And too often, especially in government work, people are looking when we don't know they're looking, and everything we do should be considered an audition for that very reason.
Absolutely. It's not just, and this is from an employee standpoint, you know, we work and we do just a good enough job just to make it through the day, and then we go into the interview and then act like we're, a superstar that's a super team player, not realizing or forgetting about the fact that these people already know you.
Right.
So, like, wait, so you're this guy that just, you're jumping in there, you're trying to get all this work done, but bro, you come late 3 days a week. I know you. If I didn't know you, this guy you're selling is great. But back again to branding and integrity. And what is the brand that you put out to the public? You're trying to sell me a Yugo or a Daewoo. And you're trying to sell it to me as a Ferrari. I've already seen the cars explode. You can't sell me now. You have a lot of brand and image repair to do before anybody believes that. Come in every day understanding that the number one company that you work for is yourself. And your brand needs to be tight even on days when you don't feel like working. I come in and I say to myself, I'm a private contractor and my number one account is my day job. I have to keep that account happy, not just for my account, but for Harvey Incorporated.
In case you were wondering what that sound was, it was a very small, thin mic dropping. I think this is an excellent place to leave things. My name is Jamie Kowalski.
You forgot your name, bro?
I just remembered
that
I really hate Jahi.
Well, I love you, bro.
And on that note, we're also on Facebook, YouTube, other things. There's probably going to be a blog. We really haven't thought it all out yet. Stop bugging us.
Yeah, in project management terms, we call this Kaizen, continuous improvement.
Okay.
It's true.
Yeah, he made that up.
Google it, it's a term.
You Google it.
Yeah. We love you too, and we will see you on the next episode. So that's going to wrap up this episode of the Up, Out, and In podcast. Be sure to hit the like button and share as much as you like. What did you think about the topics discussed today? Go ahead and let us know in the comments. Got a leadership or business decision you'd like our guest to weigh in on? Maybe a good topic for a future guest or discussion? Maybe you'd like me to come and share Power Placement Academy strategies with your staff or organization? If so, go ahead and contact me at powerplacementacademy@gmail.com or search LinkedIn at Jahi Harvey, PMP. Thanks. And remember, in each issue lies an opportunity. If you can't avoid it, make the most of it.
This is the Coaching Up, Out, and In podcast.